A big hello and a very warm welcome to Brand Equity with me, Sonali Krishna. In India, infrastructure development is not just a necessity, it's a catalyst for progress and transformation. It lays the foundation for economic growth, social advancement and improved quality of life for millions. From modernizing transportation networks to expanding access to healthcare and education, robust infrastructure is essential for bridging regional disparities and fostering inclusive development. Now, UltraTech Cement, a leading cement industry giant, is attempting to showcase the transformative power of infrastructure in India and demonstrate how infrastructure development can bring about positive change in the country. Hence, in today's edition of Brand Equity, we're going to talk about transformative impact of infrastructure on human lives, the way ahead for the cement and infrastructure industry, and India's path to becoming a developed country by 2047. And with that, let me introduce my guests on the show today. Joining me in the Brand Equity studio is Ajay Dang, President and Head Marketing UltraTech, and Amin Lakhani, Chief Executive, Mindshare South Asia. Well, thank you so much for joining me, gentlemen, right here on the show. Truly a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
I have to say, this is a very different category than usually that category is brand equity spotlights, because cement is such an unsexy category, no offense meant to you. But of course, UltraTech has managed to kind of engage and educate the audience in a very alternative way to, let's say, how the cement category usually advertises. So I'm hoping that this interview is particularly educative, not just for me, but also my audience.
Now, when I started on this category about 7 years ago, I think we went in with a clean slate, and a category which has been traditionally a supply side category, I think we found that there is some deeply emotional involvement into this category, because for most of India, they build only one home, and that home is the most essential, the biggest project of their life, so to say. It's a project. RBI had done some work, and they'd said for an average Indian household, 80% of their assets are in the home that they build. More importantly, for the 35-year-old fellow who builds the home, this project is an identity and a competence piece to demonstrate how capable and responsible that person is. So, cement, which is the most important ingredient of that particular home, can't be a commodity. It can't be unsexy. In fact, it's deeply involving for people who are building their home. Just the fact that people haven't built their home, or they build their home once in their lifetime, they have little knowledge of the category.
Sure, Ajay, but pardon me, I mean, I am an urban girl. I live in Bombay and I live on rent. And the outside possibility that I could afford housing in Mumbai, let's say, even if I do that, it would be via a builder. So I was just wondering, I've seen so many of your unique initiatives over the last few years. Why is it important for UltraTech to be so visible to the last mile consumer? Because one would imagine that cement is largely a B2B category. So if you can give me insights on why you're constantly, through your different types of videos, trying to be top of mind of the last mile consumer.
So, Shunali, interesting, it's not your fault that you perceive that way. Partly it's the way we do business. I think we are a nearly 70% B2C business. It's just that for people like you and me who stay in metros, we don't buy cement because our homes, our flats, our apartments are built by builders. And for them, it's a B2B transaction. So you never, staying in Mumbai, you would never buy cement for building your own home. But for large part of India, tier 1 towns below, they are building their homes per se. And nearly 70% of our revenue comes from there. And of that, nearly 2/3 of that comes out of rural India. So we are a deeply spread out and deeply involved category for what I call the core India is.
So could you throw light for, the uninitiated, like myself in terms of how consumer engagement has changed with this category over the years.
Oh, definitely. Right up when Ajay joined and we met for the first time. I remember my first meeting, and we were partnering with UltraTech before as well, right? And suddenly, from boundary rope branding to to taking some mats on cricket field, this conversation was extremely refreshing. And from there to now, the journey has been just fantastic, not only for me, but also for my team, who kind of partners with UltraTech, right? So the first thing that he just spoke about is, to bring in consumer at the forefront, and therefore talk to the real consumer, in that sense. And therefore, the consumer first thinking came into progress. And into place. So, for example, whether it is driving threshold media levels for urban and rural planning, or whether it is engaging with the rural consumer as well as the digital savvy consumer, I think all of those things came into play. And through our campaigns and the way we've deployed it, I think you will see some of them really come up, come to fore. For example, we would talk about how we've engaged the rural audiences through the Yashasvi Pradhan initiative. Okay, so we've gone to rural areas. We've met with and we've invited, we've called that entire community and the village to tell us the critical progress projects that have got implemented in those areas, right? And these have been blessed, or these have been then rewarded or awarded, if I were to call it, in that particular context. With the Pradhan of that village, right? So if you look at it, the journey has been incredible. We've seen from the first year to the third year in progress, and we've seen 4x the kind of participation of these projects.
Great. So this is one. But talk to me also about one of your most celebrated campaigns, Banega to Banega India, in terms of how it was coined, where did the inspiration come from, and of course, most importantly, the outcome.
It comes a little bit out of the ABG purpose. I think the Aditya Birla Group as a purpose has deeply to impact lives positively. That's our core credo. And out of that positive value that we've created for people, community, value, some part of the value comes back to us. I think that's our simple thinking.
Sure.
If you look at many kind of companies, brands in this particular space, campaigns around infrastructure talk about, I think it's a little tone deaf in that sense of the word, because a lot of these campaigns they are about navel gazing, talking about the brands who've done the work, or they talk about how grand is the infrastructure that they've built. I think we've deeply understood as to what does this infrastructure mean. And again here, Shonali, there is a little bit of a difference between the fortunate few that we are versus what infrastructure means deeply within India. When we walked across and we talked to people, and when we understood what infrastructure means to people, I think the first thing that we observed was that infrastructure does reduce travel time, does all those kind of things. But the first piece that infrastructure does for a young, ambitious India that our country is, it debottlenecks aspirations. It debottlenecks ambitions that small town India, rural India can think about. They have great ideas, they are very positive, but somehow somebody's told them because of infrastructure, you can fly only that high. Infrastructure debottlenecks that in myriad ways. I think we thought that infrastructure should be judged not by how grand it is, but the kind of human impact it has.
Absolutely.
I think that's the true potential of infrastructure, and that's how infrastructure will lead to the growth of the country that we call India, and it will lead us towards being a developed country.
But are we banowing is my question. And this is not an UltraTech question, it's a macro question.
If you look at travel across India, India is an open construction site, right?
Absolutely.
And be it you go to small town India, go to villages, go to large towns. I think something is getting built. I think we take the zoomed out view, saying that with each piece of this infrastructure coming, how many lives are changing and how many lives are changing in non-linear fashions. Suddenly a businessman who can go from Jaipur to Delhi and come back on the same day, suddenly he can think of expanding his business across multiple cities. So the impact is non-linear, and the impact, more importantly, is in fulfilling the potential and aspiration of those people.
Then let me ask you a candid question, Ajay. Do you think that the current infrastructure development of the country is at a pace that one is satisfied with?
We are an ambitious country, and I am part of that ambitious country.
Yeah, but we're also a country that suffers of the knowing-doing gap.
I think a lot of work is happening on roads. If you see, on connecting, I think various infrastructure pieces, it's happening across the country, right? And it's happening now in a fairly systematic fashion. Can more be done? Of course, more can be done, and we'd want it to be at a fair speed, and we'd want to be part of all the work that happens, and we'd want to have our small contribution into it.
So I'm just asking you this because currently I'm a very frustrated citizen, as it takes me an hour to travel 2.5 kilometers in the city of Mumbai. I'm sure you face the same issues and the same stress and frustration. Just trying to understand from you, that is the rampant changes we're seeing in infrastructure more prominent at the moment in rural India, or at least the pace of change?
The pace of change is uniform across, and it's accelerating across. I think you and I are part of the same India. We are impatient. We want it done today. We want it done now. But I think it's happening. It's happening. Things are happening for the positive.
So, Ajay, you and of course your agency is displaying a lot of maturity, and you're behaving like evolved marketers and not plastering UltraTech everywhere, with all the initiatives that you're currently pursuing. But having said that, how do you ensure that all this effort has a rub-off effect on the brand? So how do you ensure that a consumer who's building their house says, if I'm building my house, I'm only going to build it with UltraTech?
So I think we are nowhere pushing that agenda very hard.
Okay.
The reason for that is our core belief is we are mature people, right? And we are a very mature brand. What we understand is, if we add value to the lives of our consumers, we are not trying to solve UltraTech's problem. We are trying to solve the problem of our customers and our partners and the entire ecosystem. If we do good things will come to us. And it's a space, unlike many campaigns which are kind of take up an issue which is superficial, it's core to us. Building infrastructure can't be, it's not a stance that I'm taking or the brand is taking which is completely outside the category, or just because it's a trending topic we have picked it up. It's the reason why people in UltraTech come to work. We don't come to work to sell more cement. We come to work because we deeply believe that the work that we are doing is genuinely impacting lives and genuinely taking the country forward.
So Ajay, how does it work when it comes to builders, especially in urban areas? Like, how does a marketing to builders and top of mind, with builders actually come in? And of course, most importantly, pricing. Because, builders have such a bad reputation as a cohort. They're actually equal to politicians. So builders and politicians, for lay consumers like us, are probably the same breed. So how does it work in your area of business?
Shunali, I'm not that cynical. Maybe I think everybody wants to do good work. And I think we've understood the deep insight that builders, how do the builders build their brand? How do the builders build their business? Their business is built on reputation, right? If they do good work, if they complete projects well in advance, on good time, give great quality, that builds their brand. So they will ask you for good pricing, but we've deeply understood that this possibly they might not articulate as well, but this is deeply important to them. And when we have our conversations with builders and partners in the B2B space as well, we make sure that we are enabling that their projects are top quality. We are making sure that the project comes on time and is delivered to the end consumer on time, and it's something that they earn a good name on. And if you earn a good name out of using UltraTech, why wouldn't you do it? It's a very logical thing.
You make it sound so simple.
But it is.
But as a marketer, would you say that your B2B segment is more challenging or your B2C is more challenging?
I think both. So cement, unlike I've spent a lot of time in FMCG in my career, I think this is a far more challenging, and when I say challenging, I say interesting category than, let's say, selling a pack of wafers or so, right? Because why I say that, if I'm selling something that is deeply important to people, that they're deeply involved in, and where I can help create value for the consumer, what can be more exciting? Also, let's say in FMCG, you go and talk to just the consumer directly and you're done with it. Here, there is a large ecosystem of mason contractors, engineers, architects. You are talking at one end, you are talking to very sophisticated B2B clients. At the other end, you are talking to absolute rural mason contractors. So the complexity of this category is as exciting as possible.
So, Ajay, you've kind of developed a reputation of being a marketer who speaks his mind, and we need more like you. And you have mentioned in the past that, something that is of concern is the fact that today marketers run behind, the latest hashtag, the new shiny object in the industry, and they all suffer of this, FOMO. And in the bargain, what is happening is that the fundamentals of marketing are getting compromised, which I am in complete agreement with you. You've also made a statement in one of your speeches at one of the industry events, I remember, where you've said that the advertising efficiency, so to speak, has been in a decline since 2006. And I think that is an extremely pertinent point. And I want you to address this here, because if you don't, and more marketers don't speak about it, the marketing function per se, I think, is under threat.
The principles of marketing, of creating value, so not solving. I think when I and my team and I call Amin and the team at Mindshare and our creative agency also as our team, because it is one team. We act like one team. When we talk about it, I think our principles are very, very simple. We say that we are not trying to solve our problems. You might have a problem as an agency, we might have a problem as a client, that we've got to sell this volume, that kind of stuff. Those are our problems. If we focus deeply on the consumer's problem, I think the rewards will come. A part of that reward will come to us. That value that we create will come to us.
Sure.
But just at the same time, while I've been a little challenging about the shiny object syndrome, I think I look at the shiny objects also with great amount of interest, because if new technology, a new tool is coming and suddenly it is able to help me solve a consumer problem which so far was out of reach for me, then that technology is great. I just don't want to use a tool for the tool's sake. I don't want to be the monkey who has a hammer and then everything is a nail, right? I think we've got to do the greatest thing that marketers do is bring the consumer's voice onto the table for the organization. And believe me, listening is not easy. Listening is not just going to the consumer and asking a simple question and them giving an answer.
Absolutely.
They deeply know what they want. Articulating is difficult, right? We possibly listen slightly less. They might be shouting at what they want. I think our ability to listen is a little bit of a challenge, and I take that onus on our profession as a whole. But once you do that and use all the tools, right? To me, New tools, technology tools are like fork and knife, right? They have their strengths, they have their weaknesses. If they can solve something for the consumer, I am all for it. But if they are just because everybody else is doing it, it doesn't make sense.
Fair enough. But now let's pivot and talk about your latest campaign, which is, I believe, an AI-fueled campaign called UltraTech SEPO. Very curious to know why a cement brand has got into such high-tech stuff and what you're hoping to achieve with this. So A, take me through the campaign, and B, explain to me what you're trying to achieve through this AI-fueled campaign.
I think we began using digital very effectively. We said we are not going to use digital from a media point of view. We said there is a gap that a 32-year-old fellow who is trying to make his home, he has a large gap, knowledge gap. And the other insight is home building and using cement is an irreversible process. If you do a mistake, you can't go back. Yeah. And therefore, to take decisions well, in a timely fashion, to build with great efficiency, with great quality, you need the right information at the right time in a very complicated project. So we've been using that as Baat Ghar Ki as a campaign for the last, I think, 3 odd years.
3 years plus.
And we've touched about, that's content which might be boring to you and me because we are not building our homes, but it's deeply involving to people who build. And it's touched over.
So it's like an education series on building homes.
On building homes. And 90% of that content is not about cement at all, right? It's about how to choose land, how to choose, get your team together, what all things not to miss, an interesting, simple, technically sound checklist. Now that content has touched in the last 3 odd years 500 million views, which is fabulous. And we said, can we take this new technology and make sure that rather than people going across and searching stuff, can they get to the most ubiquitous thing that we have, asset that we have, which is our cement bag.
Sure.
And we, I think, ship more cement bags than there are people in this country, right? So when a cement bag reaches a construction site, all you have to do is scan the UltraTech logo, and there pops in an engineer, and you can ask what you want.
Right.
Right. So it's deeply serving a need that the consumer has.
More importantly is that, there is this entire latent need of consumer wanting to ask, but, was missing a trusted advisor to say, there are a lot of advices also available, but I don't know which one to go after. And when it's coming from UltraTech, that entire trust factor, that entire trust deficit seems to be, disappearing.
Right.
And the fact that this is so convenient that, your housewife who has now an access to a phone can just look at any UltraTech logo, whether it is on a cement truck or whether it is in a store or whether it is mounted on a dealer board or it's in the print ad. Wherever you see an UltraTech logo or a bag, of course a bag, is there. And, all of them have become active spokesperson, right? So from, a few thousand spokespeople or salespeople that we have to, 100 million salespeople or advisors or trusted advisors is what we've created through leveraging emerging tech.
So a question to both of you. A typical Indian is price sensitive, and this is not an urban versus rural phenomenon. It's a general typical tendency of all of us Indians. So how do you ensure with all these great initiatives that you're putting out, and they almost seem like they're CSR activities and not marketing activities, that you ensure loyalty to your brand? And not that if your competition prices their cement slightly cheaper, that the consumer won't go with them.
So I have far more faith in humanity, first of all.
You're very philosophical, Ajay.
Yes, but I think it's very important. I think we treat, as a decision, we treat this choice of cement almost like, because it is irreversible, because stakes are high, because mistakes can't be made, we think of the decision almost like getting married or almost getting, let's say, somebody in your family, their heart operated, right? What do you do when things of that stake are there and things which are irreversible? You don't take a chance, right?
Sure.
And what we've, I think, shared, echoed the insight that we've gotten from consumers that home is built only once and therefore choose the best. In fact, we underscored one of the work that we've done over the last 7 years is we've not said that our cement is better than anybody else. We've not gotten into that mudslinging fight. We've talked about घर जिंदगी में एक ही बार बनता है. And that is a deep insight, therefore focusing people towards the structural part of the house rather than stuff that can be changed. You can change the paint, you can change the tiles, you can do all those things if things don't work out or don't like. You can't change cement, right? And that's a deep insight, because only when the problem is big, the solution will be important and consumers will pay a premium for it.
On that note, thank you so much. I am definitely more educated about the cement category than I was, let's say, half an hour ago. And it's been a very educative experience for me. Hopefully my audience feels the same. They know a lot more about building homes, cement, and of course, the different initiatives of UltraTech. Here's wishing you a lot more power in terms of building the category and doing all the unique work that you're doing for your category. Thank you so much, Ajay. Thank you so much, Amin.
Thank you so much. It's been a wonderful conversation.